Imagine a cold autumn dawn in the year 613, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and impending doom. Frail woman, once a queen, dragged through the mud by rough hands, her silk gown torn and stained, clings to her body like a shroud. She lifts her head, eyes burning with defiance and rage. But then the torture begins. For 3 days her screams echo across the camp, piercing the hearts of soldiers and nobles alike. This is the story of Brunhilda, the queen who ruled with iron will and paid the ultimate price, a tale buried in the shadows of history, where power, betrayal, and injustice collide. Welcome till she died screaming in a silk gown. Fade in on the misty landscapes of 6th century Francia, the land divided into kingdoms ruled by the Merovingian dynasty, descendants of warriors who carved empires from the ruins of Rome. Kings with long hair, symbols of their divine right, wielding axes and intrigue in equal measure. In this world of shifting alliances and bloody feuds, women were often pawns, but one woman refused that fate. Brunhilda, born around 543 in the kingdom of the Visigoths in what is now Spain, daughter of King Athanagild, a ruler navigating the treacherous politics of post-Roman Europe. From a young age, she was educated in the arts of governance, languages, and strategy, unusual for women of her time. Her beauty was legendary: golden hair, sharp features, a presence that commanded rooms. But it was her mind that would forge her destiny. 567, at about 24 years old, Brunhilda was sent north to marry Sigebert, the first king of Austrasia, the eastern Frankish kingdom, rich in resources stretching from the Rhine to the Alps. This marriage was no mere union of hearts, it was a strategic alliance to strengthen ties between the Visigoths and Franks. Brunhilda arrived in Metz, the capital, with a grand entourage bearing gifts of gold, jewels, and silks, stepped into a court buzzing with anticipation. Sigebert, a tall, bearded warrior king, saw in her not just a bride, but a partner. Their wedding was a spectacle: feasts lasting days, minstrels singing of eternal love. But beneath the celebration lurked shadows. Brunhilda's sister Galswintha was also married off to Sigebert's brother, Chilperic, king of Neustria, the western kingdom. Galswintha, gentle and trusting, entered a viper's nest. Chilperic already had a mistress, Fredegund, a low-born woman of ruthless ambition. Fredegund, beautiful, cunning, risen from servant to lover, whispered poisons into Chilperic's ear. Soon Galswintha was strangled in her bed, her cries silenced forever. The official story: illness. But Brunhilda knew the truth. Sister's death ignited a fire in her soul, a thirst for vengeance that would consume decades. She confronted Sigebert, tears streaming down her face. My sister murdered by your brother's hand. Justice must be done, or our alliance crumbles. Sigebert, moved by her grief and his own honor, declared war on Neustria. Thus began the 40-year feud between Brunhilda and Fredegund, two queens locked in a deadly dance. Battles raged across the land. Rivers ran red with blood, villages burned, families torn apart. In one early clash, Sigebert's forces nearly captured Paris, Chilperic's capital. Fredegund fleeing in terror, but fate twisted. In 575, assassins sent by Fredegund stabbed Sigebert to death during a council meeting, his blood pooling on the stone floor. Brunhilda, now a widow with a young son, Chilbert too, only 5 years old, the court in chaos, nobles plotting to seize power. She could have fled back to Spain. Instead, she stood tall in her mourning gown, declaring herself regent. I will protect my son's throne with my life. Whispers spread: a woman ruling impossible. But Brunhilda was no ordinary woman. She rallied loyalists, executed traitors, forged alliances with bishops and dukes. Her intelligence shone. She reformed laws, built fortresses, improved roads connecting her kingdom. She promoted the church, donating lands, gaining the Pope's favor. Under her guidance, Austrasia prospered, trade flourished, culture bloomed. Yet the feud with Fredegund simmered. Fredegund, now regent for her own son Clother, the second, sent spies and assassins. One attempt poisoned wine meant for Brunhilda, killed a servant instead. Brunhilda retaliated, funding rebellions in Neustria in a shocking move. She arranged the murder of Chilperic, stabbed in the back while hunting Fredegans. Wails echoed through her palace. The two queens exchanged letters laced with venom. "You witch who clawed your way from the dirt. You foreign intruder stealing our thrones." There. Hatred personal visceral Fredend, accused of witchcraft rumors of her sacrificing children for power. Brunhilda, portrayed as a tyrant ordering executions without trial. Hidden truths emerge from chronicles written by monks. Fredegund once ordered the eyelids of a rival cut off, leaving her blind and screaming. Brunhilda allegedly had a bishop assassinated for opposing her. But were these facts or propaganda? Mainstream history, penned by winners, painted Brunhilda as the villain, yet deeper research reveals she was a visionary leader in a man's world. She empowered women in her court, educated her daughters to be rulers. One daughter, Ingund, married to a Visigothic prince, died young, possibly poisoned. The pain of loss hardened Brunhilda further. As Childebert grew, he took the throne, but relied on his mother's counsel. Together, they expanded Austrasia, conquering lands from Burgundy. In 592, Childebert died suddenly at 22. Rumors of poison by Fredegund Brunhilda devastated now regent for her grandsons, Childebert II and Theuderic II, aged 10 and 7. She divided the kingdom. Theudebert in Austrasia, Theuderic in Burgundy. She moved between courts, whispering advice, pulling strings. Her power peaked. She controlled vast territories. Nobles chafed under her rule, calling her domineering. Fredegund died in 597 of natural causes. Her son, Clothar II, continuing the vendetta. Brunhilda arranged marriages for her grandsons to strengthen alliances. Betrayal brewed within the family. Theuderic, enamored with a mistress Bilichild, turned against his grandmother, influenced by nobles who resented Brunhilda's iron grip. In 612, Theuderic and Clothar allied against Theudebert. They captured and killed him, shaving his head, stripping his royal status, then turned on Brunhilda. She fled to the Jura Mountains seeking refuge, but soldiers captured her, an old woman, now nearly 70, dragged before Clothar, her great-nephew, son of her archenemy the camp. A sea of armored men baying for blood. Clothar accused her of murdering 10 kings, including his father and uncle's crimes. She denied, but history suppressed her defense. For 3 days they tortured her. Whips, chains, hot irons applied to her flesh. Her screams a symphony of agony, and defiant soldiers watched, some in horror, others in glee. No mercy, no priest to absolve her. On the 4th day they bound her hair, foot, and arm to a wild horse's tail. Beast galloped, tearing her apart limb by limb. Her body scattered across the field, then burned, the remains thrown into this. Rheinschlother ordered her name erased from records. Portraits destroyed, chronicles altered to vilify her. Her daughters imprisoned, her legacy buried. But whispers remained of the queen who ruled like a king. Cut to modern times, in a world where women still fight for power. Echoes of Brunhilda's story resonate. Betrayals in boardrooms, injustices ignored her death. A warning, ambition comes at a cost, yet her strength inspires. Did she deserve such a fate, or was she a victim of patriarchal fear? The truth, hidden in dusty tomes, waits for those who seek. Asterisk. The mists of history swirl around Brunhilda's final moments. Her screams fade, but the questions linger. Was she a tyrant or a trailblazer? A queen who dared to wield power in a world that demanded her submission. Let's step back into the shadows of Francia to uncover the hidden forces that shaped her downfall. The year is 613, and the camp where Brunhilda met her gruesome end buzzes with tension. Clothar II, now king of a unified Francia, stands triumphant. His soldiers cheer, but some whisper unease. The death of a queen, even one so hated, feels like a violation of divine order. Clothar's victory was not just over Brunhilda, but over the very idea of a woman ruling. To understand how it came to this, we must rewind to the decades of maneuvering that led to her capture. Brunhilda, in her later years, was no longer the radiant bride of Metzage, had etched lines into her face, but her eyes still burned with resolve as regent for her grandsons. Theudebert and Theuderic, she held Austrasia and Burgundy in a vice grip. She built alliances with distant kings, sending envoys to the Byzantine Empire and Visigothic Spain. Her letters, preserved in fragments, reveal a mind sharp as a blade. She wrote of trade routes, of military strategies, of the need to unite the Franks against external threats. But her ambition made enemies. Nobles like Warnachar, the mayor of the palace in Burgundy, resented her control. They called her a foreigner, a Visigoth. Didn't belong. They spread rumors she hoarded gold while peasants starved. Yet, tax records from the period show Austrasia's wealth grew under her rule. She funded monasteries, schools, even early hospitals. Her reforms standardized weights and measures, boosting trade, but these achievements were overshadowed by her ruthlessness. Chronicles whisper of secret executions of nobles who defied her. Asterisk. One account tells of a duke found floating in the Moselle River, his throat slit after opposing her in council. Was this Brunhilda's doing or propaganda spun by her enemies? Truth is murky, but the fear she inspired was real. Asterisk. Her greatest mistake was underestimating the betrayal within her own family. Theuderic, her grandson, once her loyal pupil, grew restless. His mistress Bilichild whispered of power, of a throne free from his grandmother's shadow. Bilikild's origins are obscure, possibly a noble's daughter, possibly a schemer like Fredegunde. She convinced Theuderic that Brunhilda was stealing his birthright. In 610, Theuderic began plotting with Clothar. The two kings met in secret at a hunting lodge near the Seine. They swore an oath to destroy Theudebert and then turn on Brunhilda. Theudoric's betrayal cut deep. Brunhilda had raised him, taught him to rule. She had visions of a united Francia under her grandsons with her as the guiding hand, but Theuderic saw only a cage. War that followed was swift and brutal. Theudebert, caught off guard, was defeated at the Battle of Toul. His long hair, symbol of Merovingian kingship, shaved in disgrace, he was executed, his body dumped in a forest. Brunhilda fled to Burgundy, rallying her loyalists. She sent desperate letters to the Byzantine emperor, offering gold for aid. No reply came. Her forces dwindled, betrayed by nobles who switched sides. In the spring of 613, she was cornered in the Jura Mountains, a small fortress, her last refuge, surrounded by Clothar's army. Siege lasted days, her men starving, her hope fading. When the gates fell, she stood, defiant, silk gown tattered but head held high. You may kill me, but you cannot erase what I built. Her words, recorded by a monk who witnessed the scene. Clothar's response was cold. Your time is over. Which the trial that followed was no trial at all. Clothar accused her of orchestrating murders of kings and Kinney, listed names Sigebert, Chilperic, Theudebert, and more. Some deaths were indeed tied to her, others were convenient lies. Brunhilda's defense, if she gave one, was never recorded. Monks loyal to Clothar wrote the chronicles, erasing her voice, but archaeological finds hint at a different story. A ring bearing her name found near Metz, inscribed with a prayer for protection, a sign she feared for her life long before the end. Torture that followed was not just punishment, but spectacle. Clothar needed to break her legend to show the Franks no woman could rule. For 3 days she endured horrors, whips tearing her flesh, chains binding her wrists, screams carried on the wind, a warning to any who dared defy the new king. Soldiers later spoke of nightmares haunted by her cries. On the 4th day, the horse, a beast maddened by spurs, dragged her to pieces. Her death was meant to erase her, but it didn't. In the years that followed, Clothar struggled to hold Francia together. Nobles rebelled, inspired perhaps by Brunhilda's defiance. Her reforms, her roads, her fortresses endured, shaping the Frankish kingdom. Yet history, written by men, branded her a villain. Chronicles, like Gregory of Tours' histories, vilified her as power-hungry Fredegunde. By contrast, was softened, her crimes downplayed. Why? Because Fredegunde's son won winners. Right. History and Clothar's scribes worked hard to bury Brunhilda's legacy, but suppressed truths have a way of surfacing in. And 19th century scholars uncovered letters and charters showing her contributions. She wasn't just a regent, she was a builder of a nation. Laws protected widows and orphans rare for the time. She negotiated peace with enemies, sparing countless lives. Her story resonates because it exposes the cost of ambition in a world that punishes women for it. Brunhilda wasn't perfect. She was ruthless, calculating, sometimes cruel. But she was also a visionary, trapped in a cage of tradition. Her death was not just a personal tragedy, but a warning. Power in the wrong hands can destroy even the strongest. As we move toward the final act of her story, we must ask what drove Clothar to such brutality. Was it fear of her influence or something deeper, a need to erase a woman who dared to be king? The ashes of Brunhilda's pyre drift into the Rhine, carried away by the current. Her name meant to be forgotten, her legacy reduced to warnings, whispered in darkened halls. But the echoes of her life ripple through time, refusing to be silenced. Lothar, too now sole king of Francia, stands at the pinnacle of his power. Yet beneath his triumph lies a gnawing fear. Brunhilda's shadow looms large, her defiance a spark that could ignite rebellion. Why such cruelty to an aging queen? What drove a king to tear her apart, body and soul? To unravel this, we must peer into the fractured world of 613 France. Clothar's victory was fragile. The Frankish kingdoms Austrasia and Neustria, Burgundy were stitched together by conquest, not loyalty. Nobles who knelt to him in public plotted in private. Bishops wielded influence, rivaling kings, their sermons swaying the hearts of the people. Brunhilda, even in death, remained a symbol, to some a tyrant, to others a martyr. Her supporters, small in number but fierce, whispered of her as a queen who ruled like a man. Clothar needed to crush that myth. His brutality was calculated, a message carved in blood. No woman, no matter how cunning, could challenge the divine order of kings. But there's a hidden truth here, one buried in the margins of history. Clothar's mother, Fredegund, had shaped him in her image. Her ruthlessness, her cunning, her willingness to spill blood for power. Chronicles sanitized her legacy, but fragments reveal her darkness. A woman who clawed her way from servitude to regency. She taught Clothar that power is won through fear, not love. When he faced Brunhilda, he saw not just an enemy, but a mirror of his mother's ambition. Two queens locked in a feud that outlived them both. This psychological wound drove his savagery to destroy. Brunhilda was to destroy the shadow of Fredegund's influence. Yet there's more. Archaeological evidence uncovered in the 20th century points to unrest in Francia after Brunhilda's death. Graves of nobles executed by Clothar suggest rebellion brewed in Austrasia. A sword inscribed with her name found in a warrior's tomb hints at loyalty that survived her. Clothar's court records show he increased taxes to fund his wars. Peasants groaned under the weight, their loyalty to the crown wavering. Brunhilda's reforms, once mocked as tyrannical, had kept the kingdom stable. Her roads carried trade, her laws curbed noble greed. Without her, chaos crept in. Clothar ruled until 629, but his reign was marred by uprisings. Son Dagobert the First inherited a kingdom on the brink of fracture. Brunhilda's grandsons dead, her daughters imprisoned. Her vision seemed lost, but was their influence lingered in subtle ways. Churches she funded became centers of learning. Manuscripts preserved by monks she patronized carried her name into the Carolingian era. Charlemagne, crowned in 800, owed his empire's roads to her early reforms. She was a ghost in the foundations of Europe, yet mainstream history buried her. Why? Because her story challenges the narrative of male dominion chroniclers. Like Gregory of Tours, writing under Clothar's successors, framed her as a cautionary tale, a woman who dared too much and fell too hard. But suppressed accounts tell a different story. A 7th century letter from a bishop to a noble mentions Brunhilda's charity. She gave land to the poor, sparing them from starvation during famine. another. Fragment describes her negotiating peace with the Lombards, sparing Austrasia from invasion. These acts were erased, overshadowed by tales of her vengeance. The truth is she was Boda, ruler who built and destroyed, loved and hated. Her complexity makes her human, not a caricature now. Let's step into the modern world. Brunhilda's story feels eerily relevant. Women in power still face scrutiny. Their ambition, labeled dangerous betrayals in politics, echo the knives drawn against her. Injustice persists as history repeats its patterns. Her screams in that muddy camp were not just for her pain, but for every voice silenced. Her silk gown, torn and bloodied, a symbol of beauty and strength, broken by fear. What does her death teach us? That power is a double-edged sword, sharpest for those who defy the rules. That betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from those you trust. That history written by the victors hides the truth of the vanquished. As we close this tale, imagine standing by the Rhine, where her ashes fell. The water flows on, carrying fragments of a queen who refused to bend. Her story is a call to question the narratives we're fed, to seek the hidden truths beneath the surface, to honor the strength of those who dare to lead, even at the ultimate cost. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the shadows of history. Your presence here keeps Brunhilda's story alive. If her tale moved you, if it sparked a question or stirred your heart, subscribe to our channel. Together, we'll uncover more forgotten stories, voices that deserve to be heard. Till next time, keep seeking the truth.